Today is Tuesday, November 8th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. Another wonderful fade from Serge.
Yeah.
Really put his whole body into that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am one of your co-hosts, Mike Schallau from Is Was Brewing.
Yeah,
And I'm here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple. Chris, how you doing?
good. Got a lively group in the middle room.
Yeah, it's live on the scene at the Beer Temple.
Yeah, yeah.
On a real rowdy Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. Rowdy.
Yeah.
We have to go out and crack some skulls in a moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, so if you come to the Beer Temple and you're too loud on a Tuesday, we will crack your skull.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the legalities of threatening people over the
Right.
Terrestrial
I think it's
airwaves
satire.
are.
I think satire's
this
covered.
whole show is satire.
Well, I saw you not that long ago, right? I saw you. Did we do the show on?
It's a Friday,
Yeah, on a Friday, and then I'm going to be seeing you again this weekend.
Sunday.
Yeah, for the Lambic episode. So seeing a whole lot of you, which means
That's right.
for all the listeners, we get to take a whole bunch of weeks off later on
Yep,
in
and
the year.
not just the weeks where we forget to schedule anything, like real
No.
planned weeks off.
Planned weeks off,
Yeah.
which will be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I just saw you a few days ago, but since then, any huge news for you? I mean, massive news only. Like,
No.
Best in Show. You won Best in Show at Fobab over the
I
weekend.
certainly did not.
Oh, okay.
No, we didn't win.
Oh,
Sorry, Serge. No, we entered one beer, and I assumed we weren't going to win, but
okay.
just wanted to do it again. I don't know if I'm going to do it again, to be honest. It was a lot of beer, and
Yeah.
real kick in the balls.
Did you go to the event?
I did go to the event. It's a real kick in the balls to give 6 cases of your most expensive beer to someone, and then at the end of filling out the form, have them be like, also give me $100.
Oh.
So I don't know. It's like if a brewery as small as ours, it makes a lot of sense to do that again.
Did you get the tasting notes back? Because
I mean,
we've both judged, and you give notes,
We'll
right?
maybe get tasting notes in like 8-10 months.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'll take a while.
Okay, but you are going to get them, you think?
I have no idea. Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, they'll send them somewhere.
It'd be fun to read them.
Yeah.
You should read. Would
For
you
the-
ever?
my
Would you
fail-
ever read them
failure
on
with
the
beer.
air? No. Would you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd read them on the air.
Yeah. Let's just see what people say.
Yeah.
We should have some with it. It was Levain, right?
Yeah.
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 Which is, I think it's my favorite beer of yours.
Thank you.
It's great.
The judges did not agree with you. Oh, maybe it was their favorite beer, but none of our beers were aren't medal worthy to them.
What category?
It was mixed culture.
I think By and By from Perennial. Was that mixed culture?
Yeah, I think that won like a silver.
Yeah.
It's
We have
really
that on
good.
draft. It's very good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard in those judging scenarios.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, I've been in at those tables.
Next
It's-
time, more Amaretti.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
More lambic extract.
Exactly. We'll get to that. Anyway, we've got a roundtable episode. First in a while, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
They all kind of run together.
They all
at
kind of
some
run
point.
together. We've had a bunch of goofy ones. We've had our fantasy draft. We had the Christmas episode, which won't come out until later. The history of Christmas beers.
I had a friend of the of Iswas and of the show, Frank, text me about the draft episode, laughing at us being very confused by the styles on Beer Advocate because he is an admin on Beer Advocate that helps decide what
They still have admins?
I guess so.
They still employ people?
No,
Well, I mean,
no,
never
employ,
mind.
come
Sorry.
on.
Yeah,
yeah,
duh.
like we're employed by this podcast.
Yes. Got it. Well, cool.
Shout out to Frank.
Yeah, I have not checked at all what the it may shock you, but I haven't looked at what any of the what the scores are. haven't looked at any of them. Should we look very quickly?
If it's quick.
Very quickly. I'll do it within a moment. Oh my gosh, we have 30 votes.
30.
There you go. More than I thought. You know what? We'll talk about it next time.
Who's winning?
We'll talk about it next
who's
time.
Who's winning? Is it? It's not you, huh?
It's not Team 420 North, which is who I was sure was going to win.
For sure they were going to win.
No, it's you.
It's me?
Yeah, you've got half the votes.
Nice.
So you've got as much as everybody else combined.
That's right. That rocks.
Bogus.
I honestly
So that's Trumer Pills,
don't
Guinness,
remember.
Russian River, Pliny the Elder, Cantillon Mamouche, Schlenker La Hellas, and Hill Farmstead Edward.
It's a pretty good list, I got to say. I'd drink those beers.
Yeah, I suppose. All right, well, let's move on. There's still time. Hey, guys, it's Election Day, so vote. Vote for whoever's Dynasty Fantasy Draft is the best.
That's right. Where can they do that?
Go to the show notes. I don't know, somewhere. Go
By the time
find
this
it.
is out, it's probably not going to be open
Team
anymore.
420 North. Come on, they got. I'm a little bit annoyed at our listeners that it's not a resounding win for Team 420 North.
Right? What did they draft again?
That was the AI enhanced draft.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the slushy XXL red velvet cherry cheesecake, double glazed orange milkshake, smooch blackberry pina colada.
Blackberry
the
pina
90
colada
kids seltzer that had, or the imperial pastry that had every piece of
Dunkaroo
candy
and Oreo and
Yes.
yeah.
Oreo Speedwagon and Leinenkugel Berry Weiss. Not a single vote for that one.
It's more like diabetes north.
Yeah. Anyway,
Or 20
let's get to the show. But there is still time to vote in that election. I'll call it.
Yeah. When do we count the mail-in ballots?
That's a very good point. As soon as we get one.
So mail your ballot to
Yeah.
Beer Temple.
The Beer Temple, 3173 North Elston Avenue, Chicago, 60618. We have been getting handwritten letters.
Nice.
So
It's a dying art.
Yes. So we are still getting those. So thank you to everyone who's written. You get some swag. You'll get what if you want a glass or a shirt from Iswas or Beer Temple. Just let us know.
If you're a size medium, you can get a shirt from Iswas.
No, if you like handmade clay glassware from Iswas,
absolutely
you can get that.
Costs more than most of our beers.
Yes.
All of our beers combined.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. We've got two people in here who've been very patiently listening to us just ramble about asinine stuff. One of them is shaking his head. Yes, I have been patient. Yes, it's asinine.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the senior member of the panel, so that's how we introduce people, for those who remember, in order of seniority. And that's, before he came in, we were talking about where we were going to do the show, if we we're going to do it in the back room or this room. I said, well, we do have royalty coming in, so we should probably do it in the Fox room. So we have Chicago beer royalty, Mr. Michael Roper of the Hopleaf. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Concise.
Yeah, good. Very Jerry
Yeah.
Nelson-esque.
Yeah.
What's new with you, man?
Well, I've just been back from 6 weeks in Europe. I've been back for about 8 or 9 days, and I came back just in time for our big Three Floyds 30th anniversary
Yes.
Hopleaf takeover.
That's been the talk of the town in a lot of ways. Well, we were talking about it here at Beer Temple, and when I came and sat down, I heard you guys talking about it. Yeah, how'd it go?
It went very well. I'm actually not a fan of tap takeovers, and we haven't done one in years and years and years. And it was actually Nick Floyd's idea. He's like, it's your 30th year. We'd like to do something with you. And he didn't have a date in mind or something, but we kind of thought, well, it's going to be some Dark Lord beers, Halloween. It's like kind of, and I think that doing it, we did it for 2 days instead of just one.
Yeah.
And that also kind of split the crowd up a little bit, so it wasn't too crazy.
And you did, for those who don't know, you did 30 beers.
we had over 30 beers, but we had 30 tapped at any given time. So as some things ran out, we had a backup for them so that everything did get tapped. We had the Dark Lord beers tapped on a time schedule, and it was fun. And we have a relatively new beverage director at Hopleaf, Stephanie, who really knocked it out of the ballpark as far as organizing the cooler and making it run very smoothly, and having the staff all kind of knowing where everything was, and so it went really, really well. And we have a very long relationship with Three Floyds. Not our whole 30 years, because they started in 1996.
Right.
Babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They. I remember. So, they had a brief period in their early days where they were in Hammond.
Yes.
In this really small storefront space with a bunch of really primitive equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down there, and checked it out in the really early days. And at that point I could have never predicted what was.
Who would have predicted? Yeah, right.
What would become of this little startup. And, they obviously moved to much bigger and better things. But, we've had just this consistent relationship. And they're not the only brewery like that. I mean, we have a few beers that, from 1992 on, we've had consistent tappings, but they're the ones that kind of rose to the occasion and said, hey, it's your 30th year, so let's do something.
Cool. Well, that's great. I mean, Nick Floyd's a pretty intimidating dude. If he asked me to do pretty much anything, I think I would say yes, sir.
He was not. He did not make an appearance during the event.
One of the least surprising things about that event, I would think, is
we were told that he was
probably sitting in a car across the street watching it. Probably.
We were told he was going to stop by at 6:00 on Sunday, and we awaited his arrival.
Mm-hmm.
And basically almost the entire staff of Three Floyds were there. And somebody got a text and said, well, he's not coming.
Yes.
That's too bad, but
yeah. I've seen him. He makes it out. You do see him out in the wild every once in a while.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you frequent Lachette's, or before that. Oh my gosh, what's the old craft beer bar that turned into a daycare on Fullerton?
Quenchers. It's a pediatric office, like a doctor's office.
Okay, sorry. Similar.
Okay, get it straight, Chris.
Yeah, I've gone into Quenchers a few times, seen him in the back, kind of headbanging to whatever band was playing there. But or the Map Room. I mean, that's his true haunt, I think.
He does come in sometimes unexpected. I'll just see him at the end of the bar and has a few beers, cool. And he's kind of a quiet guy.
Yeah,
actually.
he is.
You look at him, you think this guy's going to be like a monster guy, but he's really kind of a quiet gentleman.
Yes, big guy though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. I'm glad it went well. And hey, 36 beers that way when one kicks. Yeah. Oh, Angie kicked. But don't worry, we have Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, Robert the Bruce. Yeah. What a switch, what a change up.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah.
Jinx
proof. I was waiting. I was drinking all the Angie just so we could get to that. Jinx proof, exactly. Cool. I just think it was neat to have an old school tap takeover back in the day. And you and I were talking about that at the, Michael and I were talking about that at the preview, the Friends and Family preview of Hop Butcher, their tap room.
What day were you guys there? I was there.
You were there for the extra cool kids day. You were there on Friday, right?
Yes, I was.
I was there on Saturday for the less cool kids.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know why you got invited to that one. Apparently that was literally family, but I guess, it's like Olive Garden for them.
Yeah. When you're here, you're family.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'll bring it up to Jude when it isn't in his own place. But
they did have a lot of breadsticks, so.
Yeah. All you could eat. Yeah. They fill you up on it, so then you don't get to drink a lot of their beer.
Actually,
that's the trick.
They literally did have all you can eat hot dogs.
Yeah, I'd heard
That was
that.
pretty fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have another
didn't have
guest
one.
here,
Yeah.
so we should probably get to him. First-time guest. So the deal is, first-time guests introduce themselves. So thank you for your patience. A lot of it. 25 minutes is the longest I think it's ever gone.
The show's only half an hour.
I
Right?
know.
25 minutes.
So it's usually 26. But we'll
it's
let it go.
15.
We'll let it go
I
a couple
can't.
extra.
I can't go. I can't not speak this long.
Yeah, right. What's up, man? How are you?
My name is Jacob Sembrano. I am head brewer of Cruz Blanca in Chicago, West Loop. And yes, this is my first time appearing or speaking with this roundtable.
Thanks for coming on,
Very
man.
nice.
Yeah, it's been too long, but yeah. So I don't know. What should we ask Jacob? Should we put him on the spot? Should we grill him a little bit?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do
Sure.
it.
Let's
Yeah.
make him uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, even
We iced
even
him,
Michael
iced him
was
for
like, let's
15
do it.
minutes, and
Yeah,
now let's
right.
ask the hard questions.
Exactly. Who you voting for in the midterms? No.
That's right. Which
So-
of the 67 judges did you not?
Right. I got a hard question for him. All right. I think now I have to get my timeline right.
Those classic
So-
Quinn stumpers.
Yes. So I would say at this point it's been maybe. My timeline could be way off because of darn COVID.
What?
But I
Yeah.
think maybe it's now been 3 years. I don't know. There was a corner turned in Cruz Blanca where all of a sudden I started noting that the beers I was having from you guys were really good and really solid, and I was like, oh, I've gotta like pay attention, and then it stayed like that. So it's been like consistent. So is that just me having a bad palate before, or did you guys get something? I don't know. I just remember all of a sudden. Was there a moment in time where you guys
Stopped being bad?
Well, no. Did you have Did you
What's this question?
feel like you turned a corner?
It must have happened very quickly.
Okay, it must have happened very quickly. Okay.
I
You don't remember this, Michael?
No,
Mike?
I don't remember a specific instance where I'm like, oh, now they're good.
No, I wasn't like that either. It was like I like this beer, I like this beer, I like this beer, I like this beer, and then it started coming.
Yeah, it kind of like accumulates in your mind. Like, I've liked everything I've ever had. Is kind of how it worked for me.
Well, for me, it was like I've liked the last 5 beers from them, 6, and then it just kept kind of accumulating like that, and then you guys became one of the breweries that I had, more faith in than most in Chicago.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you think? Well, so I don't know if that question really was a question, but
No. I have to explain myself
that was my question.
now.
That was my. I tried trying to come up with something hard.
So when did
was
you feel
pretty
like
hard.
you stopped sucking?
No, that's not what I said.
Why did I think you stopped sucking?
No, you guys launched with like a Vienna lager, right?
No. Okay, so
Like the package stuff, maybe, right?
I think that when we first opened up, we looked like nothing like we do today, and it took us. I honestly feel like we didn't really get serious as a brewery up until about 3 or 4 years ago when we started.
Thank you. So I see. I'm not crazy.
Well, because we throw in distribution and we had to get really serious about sales, and we just actually had between myself, our owner, and marketing, and our team, we started building out very strategic year availability. A lot of our yearly schedule was predetermined already, and we just kind of peppered in the blanks with specialty and one-offs and stuff. But it took us 3 years to get to that point. And then I guess once you do hit distro, you have to think about things a little more differently. But it took us 3 years to get to that point, and I'm very content with the way that things have gone. But our draft list when we opened up looks nothing like it does now, and it takes a lot of time for someone like us to find our identity.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
I
right
think
now
for any brewery, really.
Sure,
I
yeah.
mean, unless you strike, gold, like just luckily on your first go around, I think it takes time.
Well, your identity is also isn't usually just singularly dictated by the brewery. It's the confluence of what you want to make, what you make well, and what the consumer thinks of you.
and
Sure.
and we do something for everybody. which is really challenging to do from, a very, very streamlined strategic core brand of just like lager, light lager, Vienna lager, hazy, West Coast, and then, some specialty, and then there's some small pub specialty thrown into the mix, which, is a lot smaller volume than what we're doing with like the real core brand. And then there's, we have a really small mixed culture program, and then we have barrel age program, and then we've got, we do a lot of pub specialties that focus a lot on Midwest malts and Midwest fruit, and there's like a romance to that. And so it spans a really huge portfolio.
Do you think that any of the changes that we might have noticed, I mean, obviously the brewery had a changing relationship with Rick Bayless from the beginning, and then that isn't the same anymore.
Correct.
And did that change impact, the actual liquid and the choices that you might make as far as what you will brew, what you will keep in the house for pub beers, what we're going to put into distro?
I don't think that, we all kind of liked the idea of Rick being associated with it, but, he, for the first 2 years, I think he kind of like, I never really touched base with him on what our schedule looked like. It was mainly our
brewing schedule, just for people.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. But he was always there as a support system if I needed a little bit of help or a familiarity with an ingredient or just sitting down and just dissecting how we feel about a beverage. He was very good at articulating himself like that, but. He was never. I would never say that he was like a driving force behind our creativity, but he was always if I needed an educational support system, he was always there. So he really did kind of help in that sense. But the personality of Cruz has always been, to be completely honest, it's been a lot of just myself at Hive wanted to steer on what the program and what I feel has been right for Cruz, in addition to. Again, it's a collaborative village with our owner and our marketing team. And now we've, hired a sales director, which has been really serious for us too, in a very positive way. So now we're starting to kind of really hit this stride where we kind of want to do the right thing for everyone and also, provide something that's really quality for most people, for everyone, really.
Michael, did it take you any time to hit your stride or to find your vision or your niche or to really kind of realize what Hopleaf is now? Did it take any time to get there, or was it always kind of formed? How I forget which sculptor said, the sculpture's already there in that original block of marble. I just have to take away what isn't needed, but it's already there. Where some people have to kind of find their way.
I think a lot of it was formed in my head, but we started out very small, and we didn't realize what I really wanted to do. Until first, we bought the building, and then we were, able to put the kitchen in, and then have a little outdoor space, and so everything kind of happened in stages, because we always stayed independent and never took on partners or investors. So we had to grow very incrementally with, have a little success, put some money aside, then do the next step, then have a little success with that, and kind of grow and everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I always knew what I wanted to do, but I was willing to wait for it patiently, so that I didn't have to make the compromises that I might have had to make if I did take on investors.
Yeah.
And so that's why it flowered very slowly. And then, and now with all the dramatic changes because of the pandemic and other things, some of the things, now we kind of have to reinvent a lot of that concept. There's some things about the concept that I had in my head in 1992 that aren't really relevant anymore.
Right. Okay. Like what?
Well, in 1992, there were almost no one doing what we were doing.
Right.
And, there were a few dozen interesting craft breweries in the United States. It was, the competition was very different. The customer was very different. Like today's craft beer customer has almost nothing in common with that person of the 90s.
Well, we've talked about it at length on this show, is that there isn't a craft beer customer. They're stratified into so many different types and who are doing it for different reasons, and which I think is great. It shows that it's a mature market, that there's not just a craft beer drinker that you target toward, which in 92 was probably like, I'm a craft beer person. Oh, I'm a craft beer person too. Okay, we have this thing in common, but and let's go and where you can find craft beer. Oh, there's this place, the Hopleaf, which is harder and easier in a way. It's harder because you're dealing with such a small group, and you're also evangelizing so much more, I would imagine. But now it's big, so everybody, probably down the street, you probably have many places serving craft beer when you never had it before. So,
and you have the competition from brewery tap rooms.
Of course.
You have competition from other beverages.
Mm-hmm.
You have an alternative legal intoxicant now that keeps people at home a lot.
True.
And you have social media and its power to influence what people think is good and what they think they want. So there's all kinds of very different things. But that's nothing stays the same.
Yeah, no, it's fun. For me, it's funny. I feel like I've always known the feeling that I want to evoke, but I haven't known how I can get there. And that is like what I kind of discover or try little by little, and what takes me kind of years to develop. And when I opened up this tap room, I knew that it was going to probably take the better part of 10 years to get it to where I wanted it to be, because I didn't want to just throw money at it and then have it look like a Cracker Barrel or, whatever, where there's just knickknacks on the wall and stuff like that. I wanted it all to have kind of meaning and stuff like that. But that means you're going to have, just like empty walls for a little while, stuff like that. So,
another thing that because we've been around for over 30 years now, is, imagine like some of our early customers who, were 30 when they came in the door.
Right.
They're 60 now.
Grown up with you guys. Amazing.
People have
How awesome is that?
gone through this, many, parts of their life. And, we've seen them get, their first jobs. We've seen them get married. We've seen them have kids. We've seen their kids move away. We've seen them retire. And there's, some of them are still coming in. But, they are different people with different wants now. They don't drink the same way. They're not interested in the same sort of place. They look at our place and they think, it's great that this has always been the same, but it's not quite the same, It's, because we've, evolved, and so have they.
Right. That's great. That's cool.
It's a great testament that you're able to evoke the same emotions in them, even though you've evolved and you've grown the business and you've changed and you've adapted, but they still feel the same way when they come in. That's incredible.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Or it's just grown with them. It's grown as Hopleaf has grown or changed. They've kind of adapted to it, and it's kind of a place for them. It's awesome. I would love to have a bar that I was going to for 30 years, especially one as cool as the Hopleaf. So, sounds like I'm sitting there being very, what would the term be, like sycophantic or something like that? But it's genuine. It's genuine. It's a special place.
I appreciate it.
It's a special place. Okay. So we have actual topics that we're supposed to talk about, not about how Jacob's beer used to. No, I'm joking. But before we do that, there's a few things that we need to do. One is plug
The book
club, and it works. We're getting more and more letters, including a written letter about our upcoming book club.
What's the date again?
November 22nd.
All right.
Josh Noel coming in hot to talk about his book, Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out. I should probably remember the name of the book. Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out. So he's going to come on. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about like kind of more than like what the book's about, like what the book means and where the kind of the industry has gone since then. And there's some really good letters, I'm going to say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So if any of you guys haven't read the book, read it. It's a good read. It's a fun read. And then if there's anything you want to know, because at this point it's a couple years old, send us your letters, and we'll read them to Josh, and he can elaborate on them. And you can. I already gave the address. It's also in the show notes, but I'll give it one more time. It's 3173 North Elston. It's in Chicago, 60618. Or send your electronic letter. It's much easier to do. Doesn't mean as much when I get it, but it still means a lot. Does mean a lot. insiders@craftbeertemple.com. And then, we'll read it. And if it's worthy, we will mention it to Josh. Hey, and make him hard questions, too. I mean, don't...
Yeah, really zing him.
Zing him. Come on.
We gotta get some gotcha journalism questions
Yeah,
in there.
exactly.
Why aren't you allowed at Goose Island anymore, Josh?
Right. Why aren't you invited to the Bourbon County preview event anymore? Why do you have
You don't need to write that one. I feel like we'll probably.
Why do you have to go to Chris Quinn and ask him to sneak you bottles before he's supposed to sell them?
Yikes.
I shouldn't have said that. But anyway. No.
Serge, edit that out.
And I always say no, but the moment I'm legally I'm allowed to and Goose won't yell at me, I will.
He doesn't seem to have a problem telling anyone else. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, cool. The second thing is I want to get a refresher on my beer, and then we're going to come back, and we've got a couple of topics to talk about. We do also have a letter that I've been trying to get to for a couple episodes, so maybe we'll get to that as well.
We're going to talk about the most important company in craft beer, according to VinePair.
Yes. Yeah. All right. We'll talk about that when we come.
Welcome back to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Schlau of Is Was Brewing. I'm here with your other co-host, Chris Quinn of the Beer Temple, Jacob Sembrano of Cruz Blanca, and Michael Roper of the Hopleaf. And we're about to talk about the most important company in craft beer, according to VinePair.
Yes.
This article came out recently in VinePair that says the most important company in craft beer makes marshmallow extract.
Written by Aaron Goldfarb, so we want to give credit where credit is due.
Yep.
I think it was a really good article.
It is.
We're joking, but I think it was a great article.
And it is something. So it's an article essentially about Amaretti, which is a ubiquitous flavoring company. It goes a little bit of history of Amaretti in there too.
I love the way it started out too. Like the article was talking about how GABF is this massive thing, and it gives away. They have the GABF medals, which we've talked about many times, and that on the slides that they show at the presentation, so that they project them, like on the wall, huge.
Yeah.
Best IPA or something like that, presented by so and so. And there was Micromatic, which does all the dispense stuff and the faucets and the just everything has to do with draft is Micromatic. So that was
New Zealand
one.
Hops does the the Pale Ale category. Y Yeast does the Brettanomyces category. Country Malt Group, all these like stalwarts of everyone's rung them up to get their ingredients.
And then the fruited sour ale category. What do you think of when you think of a fruited sour ale? I mean, I think of like on your currently winning fantasy draft team. You had Cantillon
Let's go,
Bamouche,
baby.
which is a elderberry. and that's
Fafoon,
I would think, the fruited sour.
The Tilkin event you just
Yes,
had.
we're having. Oh, right, because it'll come out in the past, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's coming up,
But those types of things, the lambic, the fruit lambics, and
Right.
American wild ales
yeah,
with fruit.
of course. So it's
that's not
funny
necessarily
that
the case anymore.
the sponsor for the fruited sour ale category at this year's Great American Beer Festival was the sponsor here, and there was a fruited sour ale category won by Revelation Craft Brewing's Raz Sour was a sponsor whose website homepage currently displays products like pumpkin pie syrup, natural watermelon extract, and a giant tub of something simply labeled marshmallow compound number 3020.
It's so like Soylenty.
Amaretti. So Amaretti, which you've joked about on this show plenty of times in the past.
Yeah.
So can you explain what Amaretti is?
They're a flavoring company. The next part of this article actually like kind of describes it well, where it's the Starbucks syrup pump thing is the next heading of the next section.
I think that's yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you're making like flavored a latte or something like that, you put a pump of syrup that's flavored with artificial flavoring in it, and they make natural and artificial flavorings of many different kinds. Some that dissolve in water really well, some that are just like pastes. Like it's an insane array. When I worked at Pipeworks, they would send us like sample packs all the time.
They mentioned that. That's how they kind of got big, right?
I read the article. They sent it to like 5,000 breweries. When we received our box 5 years ago, my assistant referred to it as the Ballast Point Starter Kit. Because that was when they were just like really doubling down on a lot of their fruited sculpins and stuff.
Or
like
IPAs,
that.
pineapple and
Well, I mean, this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but like I think they were doing that in like 2016. Is that when they said that?
That's about the right time. That's
Yeah.
about the time that it would be as Ballast Point Starter Kit.
Yeah, but so like this show. Often we talk about when did you stop like feeling like you were as engaged with craft beer, or when do you think
Everybody
like, craft
picks the
beer
year
kind of left you? And
2016.
almost everyone picks 2016. Everyone has different reasons, but this is by 2015, so they were getting in the hands there.
That was when we saw tiramisu stouts, and we all knew where it was coming from.
And that's where and because of Amaretti, I believe that's where it went for the tipping point of like, I can't believe they made it taste like this. That's so crazy that it really does taste like creme brulee. To being like, how did they do that? To like, they just put creme brulee flavoring in it,
and that
might
is
have been
a little bit jumping ahead, but that is another part of it. The other part of it is the, it's the loss of innocence, I guess. It's like in Peter Pan, when Peter Pan gets like tricked for the first time, because he's always a kid, so he always gets tricked for the first time, but so he never forgets what it's like to be tricked for the very first time. And some of that is like with Amaretti, when you're like with these beers, like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if that's my thing. I was there, but this does taste exactly like a blueberry cheesecake. I don't know how you did it, man. That's amazing.
Right.
And then to realize like, oh, you just got like food flavorings and dumped it in.
Right.
That's so. All right, we're really jumping ahead now, because now we're getting into the yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, I mean I guess we should just keep going from there.
Let's just go.
Like, at that time, I was working at a brewery that was very, I don't know if avant-garde is the right word, but making things that were inspired by non-beer beverages.
Sure.
And for the most part, never used extract for the main flavoring of that stuff. If something was supposed to be chocolatey and got to the end and it wasn't chocolatey enough, maybe some chocolate extract went in every once in a while. But when we're making a cinnamon cereal milk beer, which is bonkers, but it was done with cinnamon and
careful,
like,
man. There's beverage here.
That's a White Russian.
Oh, sorry.
But all those things were done with like things that were as close to the natural ingredient as possible. Like there's real coffee in that. That's cacao nibs. It's using golden naked oats for this particular quality that they have. It was using beer ingredients and things that were what I consider natural and real ingredients to try to be evocative of a flavor. Mm-hmm. And then when you can just go and dump White Russian flavoring into something and people like it a lot better, that's a huge turning point of like, oh, like people aren't buying this because we put a lot of thought and effort into it. They're buying it because they want to drink a boozy version of a White Russian. Or I guess White Russian is boozy, or a boozy version of blueberry cheesecake or whatever the flavoring is.
Right, right.
So there's a loss of innocence. Oh, sorry.
No,
there's a loss of innocence, like, for the breweries, I think, where it went from, like, realizing that our customers, or the customers that were buying these, like, wackadoo creations we were making weren't really that interested in our creativity. They really wanted to drink something that tasted like
not
candy
beer.
or more. And we've also talked about this a bunch on this show, that people's palates are already halfway in the matrix. Like, people's idea of what a strawberry tastes like is almost more akin to what strawberry candy or strawberry Nesquik tastes like than an actual fresh strawberry.
That's a story. I'll recount it to you too. I've said it on the show before, but it was funny. I had Aaron from Scratch was here, and he was talking about there was a sample had been dropped off of a strawberry beer, and I think he was also talking about an East Coast brewery who also made a strawberry beer, and he was like, these things, it's so funny how he thinks. He's like, strawberries aren't in season, and and he's like, I bet you if I bet you it doesn't taste a lot like strawberry. I bet you a real strawberry wouldn't taste anything like that. And then we started talking more and more, and we came to this sad realization, which we both knew was true, was that people would prefer it to not taste like real strawberry. They wanted it to taste like strawberry quick.
Right.
That's the flavor they wanted. They wanted nostalgia from their childhood of an artificial strawberry, not a real strawberry. So that's, I think, what you mean by in the Matrix. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Their taste sensory memory is more based on synthetically derived flavors for a lot of these things than it is on eating a fresh strawberry.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I think like, you have your favorite little neighborhood bakery, and they make blueberry scones, and there's these little blue things in there, and you think, oh my God, there's blueberries in here, and then you realize that actually there's no blueberries in there at all. It's like this fake thing, and some people just say, I don't care. It's like,
right.
That's okay. They actually wouldn't recognize this same product with a real blueberry in it.
Right.
And the fact that these kind of things have made their way into the beer world, where there's flavorings and paste and concentrates. I mean, I guess that it was inevitable because it's in every other aspect of food and drink. Mm-hmm. Like artificial flavors are in everything.
And some of them, I think, to be fair to what you're saying, Michael, are just kind of, I think, accepted. The one that I always think about is like almond. Almond extract is like what everybody thinks of as almond flavor, natural almond extract. Like, if you eat a lot of almonds, sometimes when you're eating an almond, you'll get a bit of that almond extract, like a hint of that flavor. Right. But it's so mild compared to something what you have in, what is it, a marzipan or something? Yeah. And so it's been around for a while for certain things, but now it's like these Frankenstein concoctions where you have like s'mores, and the one, there was a guy quoted who worked for Emirati saying how much he loved his like cinnamon bun, or like glazed cinnamon bun or something. And
the thing is, like, it's really hard to make something that tastes like a cinnamon bun using cinnamon and things and ingredients that make beer. But if you add this flavoring to it, then it is evocative of a cinnamon bun. And then there's two really interesting quotes from Augie Carton, who owns a brewery in New Jersey, that was kind of in a similar vein as Pipeworks, of doing like high concept adjunct kind of driven beers, but using real ingredients for them. Like they made that regular coffee, which was like supposed to be coffee, cream, and 2 sugars, which is a thing in the East
And I was
Coast.
going to ask Jacob a question before you got to that quote, if that's okay, Mike. Mm-hmm. So I was curious if if you had any thoughts on something that I know I've heard in the shop before, and I'm guessing, Mike, you've heard it. I'm sure you have too, where somebody tastes something that you've brewed, and I'll use like the classic stereotypical one that used to happen several years ago, where if you had maple syrup in anything, people would drink it and say, I wish there was more maple to it. I wish there was more maple. And you realized that you were going up against almost something impossible. It was like you're using real almonds, and people,
you're going up against,
they want.
You're going up against cereal and Pop-Tarts. So this is actually something I have an immense amount of conflict over, because flavor has been, I've dedicated possibly 20 plus years of my life to it, and in one career to the other. But yes, that has crossed my path a lot, where the use of natural ingredients, and when I say natural, I don't mean natural flavorings. It was alive at one point in time, but that was a long a long time ago, after before processing. I've gotten that a lot. So it's I try to really stick to as natural as I can. I mean, I straight out of high school, I went to culinary school. I started working in professional restaurants, and I worked in a lot of like farm to table restaurants. So at the heart and soul of everything that I did was always locality. It was natural ingredients. I get into brewing in 2010, and working at Goose, at the pub, we prided ourselves on a lot of farmers market ingredients. I brought a lot of that over to Cruz. So every beer that when I started out Cruz, a lot of our beers that we're adding were, I didn't want to do a fruit beer unless I could get something that was locally, or not, when I say local, Michigan grown. And we did a lot of fruited beers, and then we did chocolate and nuts and cinnamon and spices, but it was always a natural, a real living ingredient. And then people's tastes start to really fall off the deep end. So, I have extreme conflict about that. So then, we go to purees for some of our beers, but all of our mixed culture stuff is always natural fruit. So, I kind of have maintained this really fine balance, but with complete conflict a lot, because I know that I'm not making beer for myself. And then, the years go by, and, I start to become a little bit more comfortable with using certain ingredients that you originally didn't want to. And flash forward to today, where for various projects that we work on internally, I have samples from a flavor house, which is alive and real, and it's how can I, and this ties into for beers that are going into really large scale production, how can we lower costs while still maintaining certain flavors? And some of that is with synthesizing acid profiles of fruit with citric acid, lactic acid, malolactic acid. Maybe we can reduce fruit costs of juices and single strength purees with, essence. So now I realize that those beers that started as 10 barrels that I really liked, and now we have projections of brewing, 1,000 barrels of it next year. I can't do it the same way. So the confliction has always been there from day one. Yeah. And it's been a hard journey, but at least
I can imagine. I can imagine, especially, that's such a direct, immediate example of that, where it's like, this beer's amazing. We want to make more of it, but to make more of it, we can't make it the same way. It's and that's something that's like as old as industry. That's just how it always has been. Like, if you want to scale it up, you may have to change things. It will change it. That doesn't necessarily mean worse or better. It just means it will change. May mean worse, but yeah. But
I think a lot of this power is at the discretion of the creator.
Right.
I mean, you can pander and you can get as silly as you want, or you can stay true. And I think there's a way to stay true and still toe the line and still use
So
it.
I want to
Yeah,
hear
well-
what's the way to stay true. Sorry, Mike.
I was going to say, like, I don't think it's as simple as most people would think would be if you just draw a hard line and you're like, I'll never do X, Y, or Z thing, right?
That's such a recipe for failure, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
You're-
and because you think about then you just think about some of the logistics of some of these things, right? Of like, say you made a 10-barrel batch of a beer with like real coconut you loved very much.
Great.
Coconut is
Done.
not a super
Thousands of
effective ingredient. You have to use a lot of coconut. And then you also think about like, how do you actually add it? Because like when you have 10 barrels, maybe you can just put it in a bag and dangle it in there. But when you have a 100-barrel fermenter or bright tank you're putting that into, someone's not getting up on a scissor lift and adding 1,000 pounds of coconut to that just because it's like you want to stay, keep your integrity.
Yeah.
Like that becomes a dangerous or stupid or frivolous activity at a certain point. And you have to balance the fact that like, I mean, I'm going to talk about you're trying to create something creative and inspired and alive, and you're also trying to stay in business. And that's like one of the quotes I was talking about is this guy Augie Carton saying, there's one thing that's it doesn't matter how much integrity and artistry you have. The kids want sugar water, and we'll pay extra for it. And then that's followed by, so you ask yourself, am I trying to make money or am I trying to make beer? And I think that's somewhat of a false dichotomy.
He kind of backs off that later in the article, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he says he still is doing most of it the harder way, but he's like, if you're going to make a cotton candy IPA, you have to use like flavorings. You can't just make something taste like cotton candy.
And I think he also said that he made a beer and then realized that he could have made the exact same flavor for a fraction of the cost and more consistent had he used extracts, which was, I think, putting him in kind of a moral or some sort of a quandary as well. I don't know if it was moral or not, but yeah.
I mean, and the dark thing to admit is that a lot of times, even to someone like me, the thing with the extract in it hits the pleasure center that abstract beer is trying to hit better than if you were.
And that's what I was thinking when Jacob was talking about going to the farmer's market and sourcing things locally. And I think that so many people want to believe, do believe, and say that that's what they want. They want the locally sourced. I want the real stuff. But does the pocket, like, does the when the rubber hits the road, is that the reality? And I'm not sure it is. In fact, I think it's maybe the opposite, because there was like Almanac Brewing.
Yep.
They were doing like going to all the farms and like just sourcing so much fruit and just waiting for it to be at the peak of ripeness, and it was just this huge effort on their part. And I'm not sure even what's going on with them anymore. I don't see them in Chicago, but
They're making IPAs now.
right, right. I mean, because you can just put peach extract in there, and you know what? Maybe someone who knows enough to not just read the label, but then to go in and research not just almanacs, but whatever other beer they're drinking that they really like, and then make a moral decision.
Right.
That information isn't easily found.
No. And even if you do, I mean, you're asking a huge ask of somebody.
Right. You can find those people. I've been finding them. Like, they're people that drink was beers are the dead center of the bullseye of people who actually
don't want the real stuff.
Spend their money on a brewery that's like, well, I used a lot of strawberry, but strawberry doesn't make things look pink unless you use a lot of it. And I used 4 pounds per gallon, and it's not pink. But this is what a strawberry tastes like when it dries all the way out. Like, this is what it is, and it might not taste like quick.
Right.
And I can tell you from experience, there's way less of those people than the people who want to drink your Mosaic IPA with strawberry extract in it.
Right.
Right. And so, but, if it's all about, there's not all about one thing. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
I think it's how you position your product and what you've created. And I think that there's, even with a lot of the stuff we're doing at Cruz. I think we don't necessarily do a really wonderful job at talking about it because there's always so much happening in our world, but we still have those beers that, you know, the mixed culture beer aged 2 years with, you know, 2 pounds of pawpaw, you know,
Right.
and that, you know, and that's not fun. And then we have,
that's
you
the
know,
worst
a lot
fruit
of
in the
those
world.
Midwest fruited beers. You know, one of our barrel aged beers this year, you know, used, you know, 200 pounds of black raspberries and 200 pounds of, you know, red raspberries.
Right.
And so there's, I think that, you know, sometimes you have to really be really deliberate about what you want to create. And then, you know, there's a couple of beers where I'm like, all right, like there's that drum of pineapple juice we're blowing in and, great, easy, you know.
And let me stack the deck even more. So, like, Michael, if you had put on something, I'll say from Almanac or whoever, and it was their strawberry beer, and maybe it was just amazing, and they had so much strawberry that if it wasn't literally pink, then it tasted like it should be, and it was just the essence of strawberry. And then you get it next year, and it just isn't quite the same. And it's not because of any fault because of the brewery. It's not because of any fault of where they sourced it. It was just the strawberries tasted different. Maybe it was a logistic thing. Maybe it was a climate thing. Maybe it was you're dealing with fruit now. So to stack the deck even further, the extract beer will taste exactly the same every single time. It's tough, right?
Yeah, well, you know, I have to say that, you know, in some ways, knowing that a lot of breweries are trying to scale up these, you know, fruit beers and things like this, that is very difficult to do, it kind of makes me respect even more, you know, the breweries that I have visited over the years, like, you know, Dry Fontainen or Bone, who, you know, they know they can't scale it up, and they just don't. You know, we're going to make X amount of beer, and we're going to make it the way we've made it for 100 years, and we're going to use real ingredients, and that's it.
Seems so un-American in a way, and I don't mean that like communist un-American. It just seems like something that is so anti to what how business works
you
here.
And I think you've been to Scratch.
Yeah.
And I've been there.
Yeah.
You know, they're that way. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, they cannot scale up what they do.
Yeah, we joke about that, like having like, you know, farms of birch, you know, just like just to scrape off all the bark and squeeze it and extract it, and yeah.
I think this is an important point too, that like a lot of the breweries that are using this stuff are breweries that grew and expanded incredibly rapidly, probably doing things with what they thought were the utmost integrity, and now have either a lot of debt or have taken on a lot of equity partners, or just have a lot of production space or have a really expensive rent to pay that because they were making 10,000 barrels of beer, and then some other company was putting Amaretti in, and then they're like, oh, well, we're losing market share, and we've got to either pay back this loan or we've got to, you know, increase the profitability of these things. And like when there's 10,000 breweries and now there's not the pie's not growing, how do you increase you don't use the real fruit anymore.
Wake up and smell the coffee extract.
I have to say that this conversation is going to dovetail very nicely with our talk about Lost Avenue.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
We have this. I have, you know, internally when because again, it's some of these beers are not always conceptually mine. It's just like what our owner is wanting or something that we kind of see that's, you know, market shifting to a certain direction. But you know, the question is always, okay, is this a one-off specialty? Is this going to be a large-scale production run? What are your expectations for what we're creating? And then once we get that out of the room, you know, out of the way, then that turns into a different conversation of how to start creating a recipe.
Right.
And I'm not going to create a recipe when there's expectations on that recipe to make it, you know, 500 barrels a year or 100 barrels a year. If it's something that, you know, we're all really happy with doing 20 barrels and just saying like, you know what, let's like really embrace it while it's here, and we'll bring it back next year, and it's okay. And then we'll run, you know, 50 cases, and we'll do the rest in draft, and send 10 six barrels out, and that's just what that beer is, and we don't ever have expectations of it being anything different.
Right.
I think that's the conversations that we have now.
I think that's the salvation of real craft beer, frankly. I mean, I think that's
people
how
that can do all
real
of
craft
that.
beer is going to be sustained, is with a thought process like that. Because, I mean...
Right, there's also no point in piloting a version of that that's unattainable
Correct.
at 500 barrels.
And that's-
So, like, if you make something that's so beautiful with this local strawberry, but your, like, intention is to make 1,000 barrels of it a year, and you can't get McClug to get you enough strawberries in December, then you're... there's no point of doing the other one.
Or make it a separate beer then, or
Right.
make it a special version of that beer, or something like that. But somehow indicate that this is the, this is the handmade one, for lack of a better
Right.
term, and
The artisanal. The more
Yeah, the artisanal
The more
one.
artisanal one, I guess.
that's why I was
It's
going to
also
say
like-
artisanal, but they're both
it-
artisanal. But
It's the breweries that can maintain their brand integrity across the broad spectrum of approaches like that
Well-
are going to be that are the most successful.
And
right?
I understand what you were saying earlier when we were mentioning how some breweries might have watched, they expanded and then they're losing market share and they see these other breweries doing it. But I think a lot of it is there was no, because we're talking a lot about with Augie and with Jacob about how there was maybe some moral hand wringing about like what to do. But I do think that some breweries, and I don't mean this in an evil way, didn't have any of that, because to them craft beer wasn't about, it was artisanal, but it was about like, wow, these flavors are so awesome, I want to make really cool flavors, and oh wow, if we put this flavor in, it tastes like that, that's really
Right.
cool. And I think that's really the wave of craft brewery that has ushered in this huge growth in Amaretti, and it's these breweries that are just like, they are being real to themselves. Like, they think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're right or wrong.
Right.
Obviously, we clown on those breweries quite a bit. And even those breweries, I mean, I always I don't know how On the Pollo makes their beers, but they've had some exception beers for me where I'm like, that beer is a clown beer. And then I taste it and I'm like, hats off.
yeah.
And then often enough, it was also the first time I'd ever had that clown beer flavor. So I kind of give them a little nod. I haven't had really any of those beers in so long that I can't really speak to that. But so I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, what's up, Jacob?
I remember giving an adult at the age of 24 years old a strawberry from seedling, and he's like, "Wow, I've never had a real strawberry before." Great thing we're talking
Right,
about strawberries, and I don't think a lot of people, and this is something that I'm happy with the culinary background, but a lot of people don't know or don't want to even conceive what it's like to sit down and pit 400 pounds of peaches.
Right.
Stinks.
Yeah, it's not fun. It might take you a couple of days, depending
And
on
it
how
costs
many
money
people-
to do
Yeah.
that.
But
Labor?
again, that's the kind of effort you're going to put into something that's you can put on a pedestal and that can be really
Right.
well regarded.
And for people that are true aficionados of flavor like that, you can absolutely tell the difference, right? Like,
I bet you. See, I'm saying this. I breathed in like
Dude.
that because I bet you
No.
you could be tricked.
no way.
It's like finding
No,
out
if you were to give me something,
your favorite athletes on steroids.
Right. Exactly.
no, I mean, if you make a truly good sour beer with real fruit in it at the right dosing rate, those beers are transcendent. And beers that have amaretti flavoring in them are commodities. They're widgets. And if you put them in front of us, there's
I've just
zero
seen-
chance any of us would be like,
I don't know.
oh,
Is
the peach
Lindemann's
flavoring.
Framboise, is that
Right.
we know
I
that.
don't
We know
know.
where that's coming from.
Right. I mean,
you
it-
can't. That is red.
Yeah, it's red. There's definitely. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they're using literal extracts or if they're using purees
I think you can use them all in a very
Right.
in a very
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they're
artfully
just
crafted
like,
way.
if they're just
Steroids.
dropping a little like steroids, right?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit. You know what? Just like bink, 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 just a couple drops of that extract into this other beer, and it will just goose it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying this happened, but like. Not the Belgians. I'm not going like Cantillon. I'm not saying that Cantillon Tilton.
You heard it here first. Chris
I'm not
thinks
saying that. Yeah, but like I wouldn't be surprised if some of the most well-respected, hyped U.S. sour guys who are known for these intense fruited sours, but like more on the OG side, if they were like just like you were doing at the previous brewery, like we wanted to taste like this and just drop a few little drops in there. I don't think that we would pick up on it, and I think we would almost be caught with our pants down because we'd be like, see, they're doing it. You can do it. And then, they're like in the corner. So you don't think that's possible?
No, because I think it's also like, what do you want out of it, right? Do you want it to taste like peachos, or do you want it to taste like peaches? Because even natural flavorings have traces of things where you're like, there's something off about that. Yeah. So if you're a group of people that want to taste what the peaches taste like, the one that's painstakingly pitted and macerated or carbonically mashed, whatever the process you're doing is going to be with your real fruit at like pretty high dosing rates, that's going to light up the brains of people like us more.
I guess my fear is that's not true, and I'm not as sure about it as you.
I mean, there's some flavors that are mostly fake in the marketplace, no matter what they are.
Right.
Like ginger. Right. Ginger is something that very few people use real ginger.
We've got a ginger beer going right now. It's great.
And so it's fake honey. There's so much fake honey around that.
Right.
Like people don't know and maybe can't tell the difference, but. Right. Like I think I can tell the difference, and,
sure.
And I think it makes a difference if somebody's using real ginger in whatever ginger ale in a beer with ginger.
Sure,
I think that it does make a difference, but again, it's all about scaling. You cannot scale things up and make like tons and tons and tons of something that uses all natural ingredients and it's not going to be consistent. It's just not going to.
Right.
It's very difficult to do that.
I like Jacob's analogy of steroids because it's like Barry Bonds was amazing. He was a Hall of Famer, and now he's even better.
Best time you can have is looking at
You're
Barry
kind of
Bonds
crushed a little bit, but you're
right? Right.
Russian dope scandal. Everybody's on it.
Right, exactly.
And you're like, well, I guess this is the world we live in now.
Right. And
there's another good analogy. Well done.
There's also differences, right, between like, this peach flavoring tastes a little artificial, or being like,
peach rings,
we want
and
this
then you
beer
get
to taste like French toast crunch. Like that. Like these are different. Those are different games.
So I have a question that just came to my mind that is an opportunity here because you're both here. So, almost every flavor known to man has been synthesized. Mm-hmm. Hops. Mm-hmm. Are there synthetic hop concentrates?
There's these terpenes that people are starting to mess around with and adding these terpenes and these terpene extracts. And I think in hops, they're finding that, 2 terpenes combined or 3 terpenes or 4 or 5 make a 6th entirely different flavor. So I don't think they've unlocked them yet because they just don't have they haven't just piled the money at it yet. But I think they probably could unlock it eventually. But for now, I don't think it's there.
They get close enough.
That hop world is moving real fast right now with terpene extracts. With cryo was the start of too much.
Right.
Yeah, flowable.
I gotta think that there's an incentive to do it because
absolutely.
The climate issues with hop growing, the uncertainties of the harvest. Like especially a big company like Bud or Miller or Heineken or something that, makes massive volumes of beer, and they want a consistent flavor, and they want to know that they're going to have a source of this important flavor ingredient next year, the year after that, the year after
Or
that.
what about the lead time? Remember when Citro became huge overnight, and then it took 2 years for the
Right.
industry to catch up? You know, I mean, there's many reasons for people to want to go to these terpenes or these extracts and stuff like that. So, which is a nice segue into the second, another part of it, which is also mentioned in the Vine Pair article, which I thought was a brilliant insight or a brilliant question that was asked. Which was, I forget who mentioned it, but someone was basically saying, like, is the future of, you know, of beer experimentation, of pushing the envelope and innovating, quote unquote, in the way you and I think of it anyway, Mike, a non-Velekian innovation. Maybe we'll just call it that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Non-Velekian innovation.
Well, Velekian and non-Velekian innovation. So a non-Velekian innovation is the
true
future of
innovation.
that. No, let people decide. So it is experimenting with extracts now. Like, do you like get your little bundle like you did, Jacob, 5 years ago, and like, you know, putting the little tinctures together and then seeing what that works out to? Or like, is that where the future of beer trends is going?
It may be, but that's very scary because
Yeah,
you know
Well,
who's
you know.
who can,
I mean, I'm a downer, man. That's what the
but-
show's all about.
Yeah, it's very likely we're already there, right? Like cinnamon toast crunch things, but you know who's really good at just adding those things to a a base
I think I know where you're going, and I 100%
is like
agree.
If the future of craft
This is the
beer,
playbook that I say on this show all
right,
the
if
time.
the future of craft beer is to make a sweet wort, barely fermented beer that's then flavored with amaretti flavoring, and that's the most innovative, non-Velekian, the most Velekian innovation you can do, and the most avant-garde, coolest thing you can do. I think the big guys are so much better at that than all you have left is the fact that you have cool merch or you have a cool design on your can.
Or that you're small, and
Right.
people think that means you go to the farmer's market to buy your extracts.
Right.
My extracts are made by this guy that I go and buy it from.
We're already seeing some of
That is very dystopian.
I
And
love it. I love it.
I mean,
yeah.
what
hate it, but
what is neon
that
bear hug
concept.
but the tip of that spear, right?
I-
That's a
I-
10% sweet, artificially flavored fruit IPA.
There's always going to be a
It's
need for
stovetop
legitimacy.
can. Yeah.
There's always going to be a want and a need for legitimacy, and that's
Yeah.
never going to change. Magic Hat, Magic Hat number 5.
9.
We all, or 9, whatever. Yeah,
Show some
we all
respect.
had that. Yeah, but that was apricot, and that was insanely huge.
Yeah.
And then it ran its course, and we've seen a lot of other fruit beers, all kind of in that same vein.
Yes.
But we also saw running linear to that the explosion of a lot of breweries that I know we all really respect sitting at this table, sitting down and pitting, 500 pounds of peaches. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's ever going to go away because we already seen this. We all really were starting to kind of hands about milkshake IPAs, and we're already seeing that kind of starting to pull back a little bit. So
yeah.
I don't know if it's all doom and gloom, to be honest.
So then that's the final area that I wanted to get, and yeah, I think you're a good person to answer this question. So what is the response to the people who bristle at this, is the way I put it. So it's the people who truly do want to buy from the who want to buy local, but they still have an Amazon Prime membership. So like they've got one foot on each side, and so how do you what is the answer when these extracts are going to become easier, more available, cheaper, and probably more varied as well? Because I'm sure they're putting a lot of R&D into all these different flavors for different. They're probably now looking at different beer styles.
Dude,
like what style would go in with a lager? What style would go in with this?
You'd be shocked at how far ahead they already are at all.
I'm
that.
sure.
It's insane.
Like, well, maybe we can just but think of this, Mike. Like, what if you just want to get that amazing triple decocted melanoidin flavor, and you can just like
They've been
drop
doing
it
well.
in.
They've been doing
That's
something really similar with
what
that
Munich malt is, right?
in the bourbon and whiskey world for a really long time.
Right.
Or whiskey, maybe not bourbon, but
Right,
in the whiskey
not bourbon,
world, they've
yeah.
been doing that for a long time, and we don't know that.
Sure.
But are your favorite rye whiskeys got little drops of barrel flavoring or
Right.
whatever, So we've already been in that world. I don't know. I think things have a way of kind of regulating themselves out. It's always going to be around. It's always been around. I think it's just, when it's in your face, it feels much more powerful than it was when
Right.
you weren't paying attention to it.
I don't know. When you look
I
at
don't know
the-
if I really have an answer for that.
If
Right.
you-
Yeah. And I don't either. I don't either.
I think if you are someone who really does care about that and wanting to buy from authentic producers that are really doing their best to not just take shortcuts, which, let's be honest, are dancing around. This is a shortcut. Really know who you're buying your beer from. Like, maybe like that's the only thing that can. If you're someone who really cares about that, then spend the
Right.
time to really know. And most breweries will talk to you about what they're doing.
And I think
They won't be like, we're just dumping extract in it. But ones that aren't doing that will be like, yeah, here's what. Like, I go through and I squeeze every peach. They'll have a really profound story about what they're doing. But also, like, don't hate every brewery that uses some sort of like mechanism that makes it easier.
yeah.
But you have to choose for yourself. Like, where is the line for you?
American Reinheitsgebot. That's you just got to do it.
Right.
I
And I
mean,
think-
it would solve all that stuff. But no. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Let's go into beer fascism.
Yeah. I mean, hey. I mean, I think it would be an American version of it, not just 4 ingredients.
Yeah, we're so good at innovating.
Yeah. Yeah.
We innovate fascism.
So the Reinheitsgebot is fascist. You heard it here first.
Get out there and vote.
Okay. So we're talking about how this was going to dovetail into the next topic. Are we ready for the next topic, or do we need to take a break?
Sure.
Let's go. Let's go right into it. Well, I'm going to ask you to kind of lead the way a little bit, Mr. Roper, for this next one. In fact, Mike, can because you brought this story to light to me, and I know Michael Roper was quoted in it. Mm-hmm. So can you set up this next one?
Yeah, this was a story in Good Beer Hunting written by a friend of the show, Kate Bernat, about how Lost Abbey will be downsizing. The company, which in 2015 hit its peak production, which is at 15,000 barrels, hopes to sell its 30-barrel system and find a tenant for half the space in its brewery as it adjusts its annual output to around 8,000 barrels. This is kind of the gist of what this article
Could
is
you
about.
just give those numbers again?
They hit their peak in 2015. That was just shy of 15,000 barrels, and now they're going to sell their 30-barrel brewing system.
Right.
Downsize that and find a tenant for half the space it is in, and adjust its annual output to around 8,000 barrels. I think that's Lost Abbey. If I remember this correctly, I read a couple of days ago. It's Lost Abbey, and then there's some other brands.
Pizza
under that
Port.
kind of, yeah.
Is there other?
But I think this was like they have a tea brand and hop concepts and some other port. It's a port brewing, hop concept, Tiny Bubbles, and
Right,
a hard tea. Yeah, so they're just. And this article is the gist of it is they're saying that instead of investing really heavily in producing more beer and trying to increase sales, it makes more sense to trim expenses and try to increase the bottom line through being more lean rather than growing the overall top line and hoping it filters down. Is the rough. The Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Mr. Roper is quoted in the bottom at the end of in the article talking about what he thinks about it.
I think it's really smart.
Yeah.
I know Tommy Arthur pretty well.
I saw him. He was at Fobab. They won Best in Show.
And I think that he's decided that making the beers he really loves to make can't be ramped up that much. There aren't, like he still sells as packaged beers. Mostly are 750 quart and caged bottles,
which everyone loves,
which are impossible to sell. And he has within the Lost Abbey portfolio. They're not going to make an IPA. They're going to make these Belgian style beers that used to be kind of in favor, but have been less so since 2015, 2016. And, I think he wanted to still make those things, and it doesn't require the capacity that he has right now. Also, I think very unlucky for him, just before the pandemic, they opened a little tap room called the Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And they did that because the location, the suburb that they are in, has always made their production facility not able to have a real tap room. I visited that tap room a few years ago, and they couldn't have any place to sit in it. You had to stand. You had to serve in plastic cups.
Oh.
You had a very limited,
Perfect.
Every
It's so Lost Abbey.
everything about
high-end brand.
Yeah, everything about the tap room that they had at the facility didn't really work, and so that location was not a good one for them in that regard. So they did open something in another suburb that was more friendly to them, and they can sell a fair amount of beer there. But, they haven't done well in the distribution network around the country. I mean, there are not that many bars that carry their beer. The styles...
They've never had a rep. I mean, there's some things that they've just not been
It takes a
doing.
lot to support.
They've just not been doing. Yeah,
takes a lot
I'm
to
not going to
support
say right or wrong. They just haven't done.
I don't think they could have ever afford
Yeah.
to have reps across the country. And let's face it, I mean, if you are selling your beer, a sort of a niche beer in a market like Chicago, is the Windy City rep going to really be out there,
Used to.
evangelizing for this?
They almost need to be in a smaller distributor now. And
Absolutely.
do those exist in a lot of markets?
No.
Probably not. They do in Chicago, but I mean, I don't know how
But
many
even
other places.
still, the smaller distributors have a lot of brands. So they're not even out there pounding the pavement for a specific. They wouldn't be out there for Lost Abbey. They would need their own rep. And there's also plenty of similarly. We're a Belgian-focused.
I don't. The crazy thing is, there really isn't anymore. Yeah. Not for them. Not for Belgian stuff.
The market's just not that big, I think.
No,
which is an opportunity. I suppose.
You have a local brewery like Unane, who, when they came out, they were brewing all kind of Belgian-style beers, but that's not working that well for them. So they launch a secondary line of beers that maybe pay the bills.
Right.
So I think I think Tommy Arthur made a good decision in downsizing. I think their secondary brand was the Port Brewing Company, which was mostly, I think, to supply beers to a small chain of pizzerias in the area.
Yeah.
And do they really want to compete with the Pizza Port beers nationally?
Right.
No, they're just not going to sell a lot of beer.
Right.
So realizing that we can make the Lost Abbey Belgian style beers, we can make the Port Brewing Company beers for our pizzerias, and we have a little tap room. And you know what? I can make enough money to live on that. He's a family guy, and he's not a youngster, he's been around a while. I think he's making a move that others probably should look at.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. Are there any other Belgian-focused breweries left in the country who are still? I mean, New Belgium used to be that, believe it or not. I mean, they did, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Allagash.
I mean, they would make a pilsner, but like they were, Allagash for sure. But none of them are really sticking to the Belgian style the way that Lost Abbey has and always has.
I think there's. Go ahead.
What's that Canadian brewery?
Unibrew.
Unibrew.
Yeah.
Unibrew, Omegang, yeah. Omegang has drifted a little bit from it, but still.
Omegang's really struggling.
Yeah.
I think this is also one of those
Unibrew.
things where-
Unibrew is a great example, though. Unibrew is sticking with it and seems to be doing great.
They do fine.
Yeah. Seems to be doing great in this climate. How about that?
Sure. I think it's also one of those things where like there's a very specific niche market for it, and any major metropolitan area has some sort of brewery that does something like that. Like,
But why is Unibrew? So I think, why can't Lost Abbey compete with Unibrew?
they make different beers.
I also think I've visited Unibrew many times, and the brewery is large enough that they actually do a lot of kind of secret contract brewing.
Oh, sure.
Well, I was very shocked to see that they were brewing Old Milwaukee for the Canadian market
That's
at
awesome.
Unibrew.
Right.
I mean, Stone. There's
And they were bought
Belgian
by
breweries-
Sapporo, right?
Right.
So,
Belgian breweries brewing Stone beer stay alive.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's not a shocker.
right. I guess they're doing it their own way. But I mean, I meant more as a brand. I mean,
Yeah.
if Unibrew is all over the country, seems to be doing decently well because it is probably one of the first things people think of when they want to go for a Belgian beer, whether they think of it as Belgian or not. Frankly,
Fin du Monde.
yeah, Fin du Monde or a Maudit or any of them. So, yeah, I don't know.
Pretty soon, nobody's going to know what those beers are supposed to taste like.
Right.
They'll just take anything.
Right.
But
Right.
look what happened in the Chicago market when you have a brand like Unibrew that has a salesperson that we all liked in Carl Braun. He leaves the company, and that brand has kind of died.
Yeah.
Having feet on the street is very important, and they don't really have anybody on the street right now. And Sapporo also bought Anchor, and oh my God, like Anchor
Sure.
is as dead as can be.
Yeah.
on the street.
Yeah.
So having those feet on the street and having the right feet on the street is very vital. So is a brand that is as small and nichey as Lost Abbey going to hire 30 people to walk the streets of American cities to push this beer? And if they do, will it be worthwhile?
Right. I mean, I guess the question becomes, is that style of beer, which currently requires a very broad net to be cast or a very small one, right? It's like one or the other. You can't really
Right.
go with the normal kind of growth model like you can with like a stout and IPA
Tell me about
brewery.
it. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
And so, is that then viable, or how is there a way forward for breweries who specialize in beer styles that need to cast a wide net because there's desire for people to drink that style of beer? Now, I mean, I will say, Tommy Arthur, I don't really know the man. I've met him. I've heard nothing but the best things about him. Lost Abbey beers are great. Made some huge branding, labeling faux pas, like just screw ups as far as I'm concerned. Because I was getting into beer, and everyone knows like which one is this one, which one is 10 Commandments versus this versus that versus Devotion versus Red Barn versus this. Like nobody knows. Like so, I think that also hurt them.
Sure.
So I'm not here to like pick on them for that, but. Devoid of that, I think there's more than just the fact that it was the style of beer, is what I'm saying for Lost Abbey. So, what is the way forward for styles of beer that need to cast this broad net? And I don't want to just say that use Lost Abbey's failure as proof that it can't, because I think there were other. That's why I'm just getting there, because I think there were other reasons that Lost Abbey wasn't able to do it. I think. There were reasons.
I don't think it's as easy to be a small brewery that can cast a wide net, even if you have like a big following and you're very like.
I 100% agree.
Like,
so what do you do?
Just what's happened to distribution in the last 10 years, and places like Sheldon Brothers going away, and like there aren't. Chicago has some small distributors, but New York has some small distributors. I'm sure there's other major metropolitan areas that have them, but. Like it's not the same as like when you in 2013 or whenever in 2016 when everything went to shit. Yeah, I think you have to assume that you're not going to be able to cast a wide net,
especially in the post-pandemic era. The distributors are so stingy about what they're willing to bring in. I mean, you have a brewery like Sierra Nevada. 3 or 4 years ago, I could choose between 10 beers, and Reyes brought them in.
You still can now. 10 versions of a single hazy IPA.
Right? They don't.
One is pink, one is blue, one's for winter,
one's in a 19.2 ounce can.
No, I know we've talked about it. I mean,
they don't want to bring these beers in.
They don't
anymore.
want to, and that's a new thing where they're just like that beer exists. No. But wait, you represent this brand, and they make this beer, and they distribute in this market.
They'll bring it in if you can pre-sell for at least a local market. They'll bring it in if it's pre-sold.
Sometimes they still
maybe
won't.
if it's a pallet, because I've talked to people at Windy City and said, I love this beer. Like I'll put in a pre-sale, and they're like, all right, well tell us next time. Tell us when you want a pallet of it, then we'll bring it in.
We sell a lot.
And it's like, come on, man. I'm talking about a brown ale here. Like, you can't sell any? Let me know when you want to bring in a pallet. Like, it's such a flippant response, and I understand it. Like, I understand what they're saying, which is, your one keg, like, is nothing. But, like... all right. Well, like, what can I do? Can I take a layer on a pallet? Can I do I now? I have to do the damn sales, and it's really difficult. And I do think though that there's always been this wide net part of craft beer, and if that's going away, that's not necessarily a good thing because I mean, in '92, I mean, it was all wide net, man. It was all wide net. Like, it's always been there, and if that's going away, that's not a good thing for craft beer.
I think that's gone for most breweries. There's a tier of breweries that can do, like, hot drops in places, and then there's a tier of breweries that can, afford to have...
Think import, though. Think Belgian imports. How about that? Then you're talking about wide net. Like, you're thinking about... Think about
right.
Westmalle
right.
and
But if
the
we're just
Dole
talking about throughout America, then that's not that big. But, like... Koreans love Belgian style beer, so if you're like American Belgian producer and you put it in a green bottle, apparently Korean people will drink it up. But like, it's not going to be this. It's like you're not going to be in 26 like shins deep in 26 states. The logistics don't exist anymore.
I mean, pre-pandemic, I was able to get to pre-order 8 kegs of DBA from Firestone Walker.
Yeah.
Because I can sell that beer
Sure.
till the cows come home. And so when I sold through those 8 kegs, I said, I'd like to keep pouring it. No. Reyes says no. And it's not Firestone Walker saying no. It's Reyes.
Oh, of
they
course.
said no. This week, I learned that, Pivo Pills. Nope, we don't have any.
Yep.
I don't know when it's coming in. We didn't really bring much in because, it's not really doing that well. Like, okay, Firestone Walker obviously has no clout with Reyes. And Sierra Nevada doesn't seem to have any clout with Reyes.
No, I mean, they're slowly strangling
They're killing
all
the
of these
brands.
intentionally.
Intentionally.
And I just want everyone to know out there, it is intentional. Going back to the first or second or third episode, we're now 200, and you were asking me 200. I was talking about, like, what do these, like, big bad guys want? They want to control the set. They want to give you the illusion of choice and control the set. And this is what that is. They have the rights to it, and they're going to strangle it.
So where does that leave? So if this happens to a Firestone Walker,
Yeah.
what message does that send to Lost Abbey?
Right.
It's like, really,
Right.
I mean, really, they're screwed. I mean,
Well, I think they have to go in a different way. I mean, and this is me spitballing, so this is not a formed thought, Mike. So, like, you might be right that it's completely impossible. But, I mean, could it go the more import route? Like, could you be a Dodola? How much beer does Dodola make?
not much.
Not much, but it's pretty widespread in the United States. And people love it, and it's world class, and it's great beer.
Yeah.
Could and was go that route and go with a wide net where basically, Frosty from Be United is the rep in the Midwest for Dodola. I mean,
But you need someone like Be United or like
pick
what
you
Sheldon
right.
Mothers did for Jolly Pumpkin or things like that. So, like,
totally.
and that doesn't exist right now, and
I agree.
It's really hard because there's 10,000 breweries, and the amount of mind share you're going to have in a far flung corner of the country for
Right.
your Belgian style ales or your esoteric style whatever is probably going to be taken up by some brewery that's in that city.
All right, here's an idea then. Just like Dan Shelton went around Europe and discovered these crazy little breweries that no one had ever heard of and made them into something, or before that, Don Feinberg, like these people who made these things. You, me, and Serge. We travel.
I'm in.
We're
Let's go.
ramblers, right?
Yeah.
In the Irish
I was
like,
born a
folk
rambling
song
man.
sense. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, exactly. Rambling. Mm-hmm. And
Ramble on.
this is what we do. We go around and we collect a portfolio, and
Of the finest Amaretti-focused breweries.
exactly. Well, now you stole my thunder.
Sorry.
But it's only Amaretti. We take all of it, and then we add Amaretti to it, and then steal some IP. Maybe put like Toucan Sam on it.
We have like the OEC model. We bring over tankers, and then we add Amaretti French toast extract to...
No, well, I guess what I'm saying is there now that model for discovery, curation, and an extra fourth tier of distribution, which is really what importers are we at that with 10,000 breweries here in the United States?
Is this what Tavor is now, though?
Fuck no. Fuck
Okay.
that. No, they're not. Because they have told breweries here in Chicago that this is a really special beer. Do you want to put it on? No, that doesn't get enough bottle caps. So we'd like something different. Anyone who says that can kiss my ass. And we've talked to Tavor. I mean, they just like, they've tried distribution and they sell their stuff based on bottle cap ratings.
Sure.
That's how they try to sell it to us. And then when they say, well, what would you like more of? Would you like more exclusive stuff? More hyped things? Is that what you want? More hard to get rare beers? Is that what you're trying to find? And I said, just your whole concept is wrong. And I had this exact conversation with the Tavor or Direct Beer, whatever it is, people, and I realized it's like I'm talking to a stone wall. Like they don't understand. They're in a different world. So what I'm saying is, would you, like, if there could be like you have like wine merchants and stuff here, how they like, okay, anything from, I'm just going to pick someone, you can shoot it apart, but like Kermit Lynch or something like that. If you had a U.S.-based person who curated, who you trusted, could that work? And then they're like, we have Lost Abbey in our book. We have Is Was in our book. We have stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a space for that now. Someone can go and spend all the money and devote their life to that and make no money forever.
I think
and then go bankrupt.
I think it's possible. I think the biggest difference between the way that wine companies like that work and the way that beer works is that beer is thought of as a commodity. So there's not going to be that one bottle you sell to Alinea for $400. Like, it's just not, like, a lot of those things are made on the possibility and the ability to sell a lot of.
But it can't be more expensive than shipping it from overseas, like Be United's doing, and Merchant of Inn and Lime Ventures, and before them, Shelton. It's got to be possible, right?
Yeah, but it's definitely possible.
I mean, it seems like that's how, like, someone like a Scratch, for example, like, they need someone like that. I mean, they need to be broad. They need to be all over the place for the people who want them, because there are people all over the country who want to drink Scratch beer. There's not a lot of them overall, but cumulatively, there's a lot of them. How do you get? I'm
sure this is going to be an unpopular opinion at this table, but the best way for a brewery to do that is to be able to direct ship. Like, to be perfectly honest, like, I know that's.
I mean, I hear you, and
cutting out a couple people at this table's role in the industry, but like, if the options are that you're saying that breweries won't even bring in 8 half barrels of distributors won't bring in 8 half barrels of Firestone Walker. There's no sorry, I'm about to say fuck. Yeah. There's no fucking way they're going to bring in 16 cases of the Is Was Afterthought collab into whatever like, there's just 7 cases of it. There's just no way.
Well, then that's why you have to do the Shelton model, these import models where the distributor has they warehouse them, and then they create pallets of all the different things and then send it.
Does it work?
I don't know if direct is the best way either long term, because I think, like, it's like that thing, like, am I going to buy my my razor blades from a single company and then my socks from another company, and then I'm going to buy my Q-tips from a third company, and I'm going to buy, or am I just going to go to Jewel and buy it all?
Right, but you're going to go to Jewel and buy it all.
Right.
There's no fucking Was a Jewel. like what? There's no Lost Abbey at Jewel.
You're missing my point.
No, I'm not missing your point. I think that is the point. That you're going to go to one central location and buy all this stuff from them, and they don't carry the smaller producers.
But there are smaller retailers across the country who can. There are wine shops who carry the rare stuff.
Yeah.
There are,
But beer doesn't. I don't think beer works the way wine works. Like,
no, because beer also has a clock ticking. The second that leaves the
absolutely.
Whereas wine,
which is why the Belgian stuff does well, I think, because that clock ticks a lot slower.
Yep.
I think people just don't bat an eye at spending $25 on a bottle
beer
of wine.
Doesn't garner the same class as wine. We just be honest with ourselves.
But I also
it totally doesn't. It totally doesn't.
No, it's been a commodity.
But we really appreciate the nice things, and I certainly do, and everybody here at this table's effort. But we still have to, like, realize that we're so connected to what we do that we're like the 3% of the general beer consumers, the people,
right?
If that.
And let's look at, like, wine lists versus beer lists at restaurants, right?
Sure.
There's hundreds of bottles of wine lists at many restaurants. There's a handful of places that have 100 bottles of beer available.
Yeah.
And so, unless you're going to find a bunch of craft beer bars and sell them kegs, but then you're not making money as the producer of those kegs, like, the economics, I just don't think work the same way.
No, I mean, the thing is that we are, a little, like, baffled by how we move forward in a world with 10,000 breweries in the United States and, however many around the world. No one even knows how many wine producers there are, but it's definitely over 1 million.
Right.
I mean, talk about a fragmented market.
Right.
It's a whole other world. It's very, very different. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Is Was and Cruz Blanca, if if you were starting out 25 years ago, you might have delusions of grandeur. You might think,
Right.
we're going to be the next 50-state brewery. We're going to sell our beer in Germany. We're going to, now that's not realistic.
Right. I've talked to many people many times, probably on this podcast a couple times, that I feel lucky, and it's been difficult the last 3 years, but to not have started a brewery in 2013 or 2014, when everyone was telling you to get a 30-barrel system because you're just going to keep growing, or that you needed your 10,000 square foot warehouse and all of this different I started a brewery that was about making beers that I really loved at a time when everyone was like, you're crazy to start a brewery, which made me very aware of okay, it's going to be very small, and it's going to have to exist in a model that isn't normal for how breweries existed up until now.
And I think, again, this is, every brewery has a little bit different of expectations, but there's this idea that if you're not growing, then you're failing, which I think is completely foolish. To have that mentality, but that is
you can get on that treadmill for sure, but it's not necessary.
I feel like that's the American dream, is to grow, indulge, swell until you bust or you can't support yourself anymore, because the world around you changes. But if you're just it's okay if your brewery goes down with you when you die,
yeah,
or your bar goes down with you, or your this wonderful retail hybrid space goes down with you, and that's just I've come content with that. But if you can make enough to support yourself, your family, provide a good lifestyle for your employees, growing doesn't have to mean making more volume. It just means being aware of your community and keeping people happy as a consumer. And I think maybe that's just all it needs to be, right?
Totally.
I mean,
but yeah, again, 10 years ago, it was just everybody wanted in beer because it was, everyone generally enjoyed and wanted to support the community and be in beer, but there was also the thrill of growth.
There was a Wall Street Journal article that said breweries have a 0% failure rate. It's insane.
Yeah,
but also, one of the biggest strengths of being a small business is that you do not have to operate like a Fortune 500 company. You do not have to be beholden to the same things. There are certainly external forces that you do have to pay attention to, but to think that you have to behave in the same way as Procter and Gamble behaves is it's a strength that you don't have to do that. And I think more breweries should, more businesses that don't exist on that level should understand you are playing a different game, and it's a strength to understand how to play the game you are in.
And I think as the market matures, I could very much see a place for people who curate breweries around the country and offer distribution to them at a premium because they are premium products. And I could see that as being helpful to everyone, to the consumers and to the suppliers and stuff like that, because, I want people to be, I want these businesses to be viable even for the people making it. I'm not saying that we need to, and Scratch and everything needs to grow and become big, and that's why it needs to get this distribution. It's no, they need to stick around. I mean, and you're in Chicago, dude.
But we could only exist in Chicago,
right?
The way that I'm running, there's no way.
But Scratch can't exist in Chicago,
right?
They have to exist in Ava, Illinois,
right?
So. But they're beautiful. So how do we make sure that? And they're not the only one. I just don't know of any others. There has to be others out there like them.
There might not be.
There might not be. But maybe there's something adjacent. Yeah. So how do we keep those people? I mean, I'm hoping in a more mature market that there's somebody who can come along and provide that service to give really the best of the best for people who are looking for that beer experience, which is very specific. I'm not saying that's the best beer experience, but that's a type of beer experience. Mm-hmm. I, as a retailer and as a publican, I would pay extra for that, and I know my customers would pay extra for it. we're not quite there yet.
I mean,
but-
right now where it's at is that there
Oh, there's
are
so much
distributors that are run by business people that are also enthusiasts that actually love beer.
Yeah.
Most distributors are run by people who don't give a shit about beer.
Yeah.
But there are small ones.
When you mean
that,
most,
like,
you mean within a standard deviation, all.
Yeah. Yeah. If we were to talk to Don Bixel and run numbers on there, the numbers that he would come up with, all of them. But there are certainly small distributors around the country that are interested in interesting things. Yeah. And they're interested in curation, and they're interested in growing things.
And there's certainly people in positions of importance at those distributors who really care.
Right.
And always have
so
been,
I think we're in a dark time for distribution for craft breweries, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
But there are lights out there.
What happens when the retailers and the on-prem start pushing back at their distributors when their options do become consolidated and boring?
Yeah, I mean that's when people like that pop up, right? Like maybe a AJ Mako or Heartland or Oath or Lime Ventures, like all these smaller places that have yet to grow too big or are actually interested in curating an experience like you're talking about, like with like the way that wine distributors or importers do. Mm-hmm. They do exist. They're in tough times right now. There's a lot less of them there used to be.
There seems to be a very delayed effect between what we all immediately went through with, on-premise type deals, or just even as a producer, and the effects of COVID and how that kind of affected all of us to what's happening with these larger distributors. And I think that they're like recouping and they're running a really tight ship with, again, like, you can't get 10 options out of portfolio now. And now you were being forced to tighten it down to 6, or whatever. And I think that's their reaction to what they've just been through. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Can I? It's been a great discussion. We're pretty much at time, and I feel really bad because there's been this letter we've been trying to read, and at this point, it was based on a show that came in that we did on that released on September 7th. So I think now it's done. Let's just read. I'm going to read this letter, and then we can get out of here. This is from Kai, and it was about the time that you had your father on, and we ended up talking about, among other things, what was like, I guess, having a mission statement, but also being like authentic and true to your mission statement, and having a McKinsey written mission statement, or actually doing it right. And we were talking about BrewDog, and we're not saying that they literally did it, but it was like,
it was very
if they were to, this is really what is how it would look.
Yeah.
So go back and listen to that episode with Mike and his dad, and me.
Too,
I was there too. Yes, about that. So let me just quickly read it. It's kind of a long letter, but I'll try to quickly read it. So just got done listening to your September 7th episode on brewery mission statements and the like. You mentioned the story about BrewDog and had a brief back and forth about whether the company was punk or is punk, or if that's just a beer name. Chris said they've shown not to be that, but I honestly think they continue to bask in it and project it. And the actual market out there, rather than the obsessive beer types like me and folks who make the beer podcast and run breweries and beer establishments, believe that line. So she's saying people who, or he, I'm sorry. No matter how huge the operation is, no matter how much the corporate culture is shown to be skeezy, there are tons of people out there who believe that, quote, alternative to the mainstream line. Also, BrewDog have sold out. The private equity company who owns Pabst Blue Ribbon owns a quarter of the company with preferential shares guaranteeing them returns. And James Watt was never a lawyer. I think you had mentioned he was a lawyer, I guess, James. I don't
remember.
He studied law, which you can do as a degree in the UK without going to quote-unquote law school, but he never qualified as a lawyer. The paint-by-numbers word salad of the blueprint is glaringly missing out things like union recognition or third-party stuff instead of making all employee engagement happen within the company or through the company-managed ethics hotline that they had mentioned. All this stuff that they had kind of mentioned. They have this new blueprint, and there's an employee hotline, and all that sort of stuff. The quote-unquote new business model they espouse, where they say they want to make sure all members of the staff benefit from growth, already exists. It's shared ownership or co-op or some sort of thing like that. But this isn't really something they've geared themselves to, not least because their aim to list publicly and through the fact that private equity company owns a quarter of the company through preferential shares. Okay, that wasn't... I don't think I read that very well, but anyway. I would urge your listeners to check out Punks with Purpose. For a group trying to keep BrewDog to stick to their promises and use their position as a craft beer brand that's arguably the most powerful outside of the U.S. to improve the industry as a whole in a truly sustainable way. Thanks, Kai. Well, thank you for the feedback, Kai, and well, not for the feedback, but for the letter about Punk and BrewDog, I should say. I was talking with somebody. Do you know who the largest independent brewer in the UK is now?
No, I don't know.
It's BrewDog.
Is it?
It's BrewDog, yeah. Yeah, because Fuller's is sold. I mean, they've all sold.
Yeah.
They've all sold to other interests. So, they're the punks, baby. They're the best and the biggest, and they've got this blueprint and stuff like that. So, anyway.
BrewDog is very, it's all over the continent. I mean,
Yeah.
they're everywhere. They're in Spain,
Yeah.
Greece, Italy, Spain, they're everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. But they're certainly not this alt-punk thing. And,
I mean, private equity is pretty punk.
yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Just like Silicon Valley's punk.
Yeah, having preferential shares is very punk.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, it's a good marketing term. It's a good way to be alt and to make people think that they should get you instead of, Stella or something like that.
Sure.
It's very effective at that.
And they are probably more punk than Stella.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. We can't say for certain.
Anyway, thank you very much, Kai. And to anyone
we
else
can
who wants
skate.
to send us a letter, it may take us 2 months to get to it, but, I hope not. I just like that one, and I've been trying to
Reading's
get to it
hard.
for like 3 episodes now.
Yeah.
and it's-
Stuff like that runs its course, and they will become an alternative beverage company supplementing their production when it just kind of follows a
Yeah.
just
And they always
We've
have
seen
this
this- we've
kind
seen
of
this before.
patina to them. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It's been an awesome discussion. I really enjoyed the topics. They did dovetail very well together. I thought that. So I did want to one last time go around and see if anyone had anything else that they wanted to say before we got out of here. But thank you to our guests, Michael Roper and Jacob Sembrano.
thank you.
Mike, I'll start with you. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, just thanks for coming on. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was fun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
How about you, Michael?
I think we both here at Beer Temple and Hopleaf are offering an opportunity for customers to get familiar with Tilquin,
That's true.
and I think that's going to be pretty special.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. That's coming up this Saturday.
Yep.
How about you, Jacob? Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
There's still a place for all those little beers that we really care about.
Corn grisettes.
The grisettes and the weird alternative grain stuff. But, Hopleaf had brought Degar in, triple, very nice. I shared a very great moment with a friend of mine from St. Louis, Jonathan Moxie, who's a brewer at Rockwell. We met each other late that night and couldn't quite remember a whole lot that happened, but we shared some Degar. And
Great beer.
And then a couple of weeks later, we found ourselves brewing a, triple-inspired beer. So, it's still stuff like that, you facilitate in that I think a lot of people still appreciate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Serge, anything you want to say before we get out of here? Okay. He's saying yes, but we'll wait till next time. All right. See you guys. So long.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never never be heard or seen from again, 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 again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen